Hey, what is up, ladies and gentlemen? I'm Piglet here once again, and I'm back for some more of yet again for the likes of the Maxi Toys videos. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to more of Let's Play of Yoshi's Crafted World for the Nintendo Switch. So, last time we have managed to 100% through everything when it comes to the Octopus Docks, and also we managed to able to went into Go-Go Land for a little bit, so able to actually deal with the forms of souvenir hunts during the forms of Poochie's tape trail and stuff like that. And today, for the sake of this episode, is the fact that we might as well able to wrap things up with Go-Go Land. Well, I forgot to mention about something, is the fact that, well, it wasn't until whenever I pursuing beat the game first in order to actually let the next hidden item that we can able to find, but then again, we'll have to wait and see what happens until whenever we come across to that. So anywho though, yeah, today we're about to be continuing things on in Go-Go Land, just about to be revisiting back to Poochie's tape trail, and hopefully we're also able to not only find those Poochie pups on the actual flip side, but also finding the rest of the forms of the souvenir hunts to top it off. So yeah, that's how it goes basically. So either way, yeah, if you couldn't tell already, though, I do apologize with the forms of the lack of time schedules by this point today for this point, probably because about the fact that I did manage to able to actually get started with this particular part during about another day ago before this was actually uploaded, and during, well, usually today's day is the forms of the 13th of February today in 2020, and as a result that I did manage to able to actually just get things started with the commentary or what have you on the editing software, but most of the time my laptop just keeps on lagging most of the time, which as a result it can usually sometimes corrupted my microphone commentaries, and also same applies to the actual footage as well. So either way, although luckily though, the actual footage doesn't seem to go completely downgraded or anything. It's still in 1080p and stuff like that, but it's just that it's kind of unfortunate about the fact that I have to do this on the second attempt on commentary schedules department. Well, it's not so bad on you know, just trying to able to actually just for the sake of clarity for that point, but still, it come across as like, you know, come across as often, so. But anywho though, a few things we want to explain about this actually before, while this has been going on, and seems to be more accurate, we can able to discuss upon this right now, because, well, it wasn't until whenever we move on to the next world, hopefully we would able to actually just explore onto the forms of some new stuff and all that stuff. So, a few things we want to explain is that, you know how the fact that recently, that once again that Nintendo Direct has no longer, it doesn't show up again, and oh my lord, the amount of Twitter pages, as well as the forms of everyone else across the world, oh man, they've gone really berserk in the end. So as a result, they just keep on, like, mentioning about that specific broadcast, and as a result, it doesn't seem to make it happen during this week, sadly. Which is kind of a shame, because either way, it did manage to, like, make it happen during the forms of last year. So unfortunately, for the sake of time on 2020, it seems to go once again dead silence as a result of that specific news, announcements, or anything else to be desired. So even then, that's one thing is a little bit more of a, well, I don't know about the forms of what causes the forms of no Nintendo Directs these days, but hopefully we'll get one eventually during the forms of this month, but then again, we don't know exactly for sure just yet, because either way, as far as I'm aware, that's, as far as I can usually tell from the actual, the time gap for this point, the ones they keep on about is the general one, which is of course the Nintendo Direct general one. And we haven't got that ever since last year's September, so as a result, I think this is now, I would classify for saying day 163, according to the forms of that specific, you know, the time gap in between. So as a result, it's been a very long time, perhaps even way longer than ever before, which it's kind of like, well, disregarding for that specific departments right there, so. But I digress. Let's mention about the forms of some of these new stuff that's been happening, such as, well, of course, much like the forms of last year, that seems somehow Nintendo usually uploads the actual next video, which is now NES and Super Nintendo game updates for Nintendo Switch Online, and seems to be more accurate that we've got 2 new games for the Super Nintendo selections and another 2 for the Nintendo Entertainment System selection. So yeah, let's run down the list. Let's go with the forms of the Super Nintendo ones first. The first one is Poppin' Twin B, which is actually the 6th game in the forms of the Twin B series, kind of thing about it. It's like a scrolling shooter that usually takes place as in cute and poppy settings and stuff like that. It's like a cutie style of, just the actual scrolling shooter kind of game. So I've heard about that game before, but I've never actually owned it on the actual physical form, just because, well, we've no longer had the old Super Nintendo console every once in a while. So as a result, we just ended up getting the Super Nintendo Classic Mini instead. So yeah, that makes it a little bit obvious for that specific solution, because, if you keep on looking up on our Christmas 2017 unboxing video at this rate, so you most likely get the idea for that solution. So, but I digress. So, yeah, I suppose another thing is that, that particular game is finally get its release on the Nintendo Switch Online membership services and stuff like that. And, also, they actually brings us to the forms of another, Super Nintendo game onto the lineup, which is kind of an odd, ballsy choice for that specific point, I'm not gonna lie. But either way, it usually calls it Smash Tennis, which is basically just tennis, but with the forms of, just on the Super Nintendo and stuff like that. I found that selections of Super Nintendo games is alright. I mean, the only ones I'm, sort of familiar with is Poppin' Twin B, because I've seemed to remember this as in, the Retro Break, kind of YouTube channel that he, on about that particular game. So, yeah, that's as far as I can usually think about it. So, as far as the NES game selections, as far as I'm aware, or actually I'll talk more about it as soon as we're able to, just dive right into the forms of Go Go Yoshi as in the flip side this time. So, you most likely get the idea for that. Okay, if you can tell right there, this is my 3rd attempt for doing this, because, well, you really can't afford to mess things up, because if you slow down, especially noticeable if these objects keeps getting your way, well, chances are you probably ended up not getting the forms of the actual, the Poochie Pups in time. So as a result, yeah, it come across as like, well, just a little bit aggravation and stuff like that. So, oh yeah, I suppose another thing I'd like to discuss upon is the fact that, well, usually kind of think about it is that one of those, YouTube channels called Aniela 1000. Again, I do apologize with the actual pronunciation error right there. Recently, that they did send to me, or sent to us rather, they sent happy almost Valentine's Day, which fundamentally though, we've already got Valentine's Day for tomorrow, and also tomorrow that the Sonic the Hedgehog movie will be releasing tomorrow as well. So yeah, really looking forward to that though, especially noticeable how the fact that, well, we might actually get some enjoyable out of. I don't know if the Rotten Tomatoes might actually receive a much more better score or a rotten score, but then again, we'll find out in Journey Forms at some form or another. So, but for me, I'm still pretty excited for it, being able to actually finally get a chance to see Sonic on a big screen at long last, because I'm pretty darn sure that in the first movie, aka Sonic OVA, basically, they did first released in Japan in 1996, and then eventually, 3 years later, that we get ourselves an English dub in the 1999. I don't know if that particular film gets its big screen back in the day, I'm really not 100% sure, just because that's, well, we were a little bit tiny as far as I'm most likely concerned about that specific stipulation, but, I digress. And they also said, happy 10 years of Super Monkey Ball Step and Roll, much easier than Step and Roll. Well, I sort of agree that it's a little bit too easy than Banana Blitz, but it's just that it come across as like baffling level design I've ever seen, but I'm pretty sure that was due to the forms of yesterday that's just happened. So, but you get the idea for that solution. So yes, yeah, that's all I can really just talk about that for that point. Hopefully until when it gets to likely in 2021, that Super Monkey Ball 3D will be also around being 10 years old when it gets to 2021. Which I can't even believe it's actually getting super scaleless kind of thing about it. And yes, as you can see, we've now basically pretty much wrapped things up with the forms of Go-Go Land. So yes, the flowers are still surrounding us. So now let's go ahead and move on to the next world, which is Big Paper Peak. So here we go with Minecart Cave, and this one has a lot, I mean a lot of those smiley flowers that we need to grab. So even then, and I'm more concerned about the fact that this level will be really long. So hopefully I can able to actually just make things a little bit quicker, but then again, I wasn't really entirely sure. Okay, if you did not know already, this is my second attempt on doing this particular level because, for the love of God, I keep on running to piranha plants for some reason, and as a result, I keep on getting loads of hit point losses during that time, probably because of how the fact that, well, most of the time the camera just always zooms at Yoshi at all times, rather than just like to zoom out, unlike the forms of how it does it on Yoshi's Woolly World. But that's fine as it is, but it's just that it just come across as like kind of a little bit of annoying platforming segments from time to time, but that I digress. So yeah, I suppose another thing I just want to say when it comes to the forms of the actual game updates for Nintendo Switch Online services, when it comes to, well, I've already mentioned about the Super Nintendo selections of games, so now let's go ahead and move on to the forms of the next discussion, which is the NES selections of games. And, you know, as I mentioned this before, they only have like 2 game selections, which there are Shadow of the Ninja and Emulator Boat Duel, which is a very bizarre choice, I have to say, for this point right now. And, nah, it doesn't really impress me all that much, though, to be honest with you, because, well, I much rather prefer, like, playing Super Mario Bros. Or Super Mario Bros. 2 The Lost Levels, despite the fact that it's quite easily the most difficult Mario game in the entire 2D career, and also Super Mario Bros. 2, aka Super Mario USA in Japan, and especially notable Super Mario Bros. 3, The Legend of Zelda, Zelda 2 The Adventure of Link, and Kirby's Adventure, and all the other jazz, basically, because those are the games I always attempt to enjoy in the NES days, so that's my kind of theory. So, and as far as the actual video ratings, as far as I'm aware, where it comes to likes and dislikes, similar to the forms of how it does it in the UK version of BioLive character, oh wait, I'm probably not going to mention that character again, because, well, you guys know about the fact that how much disappointing that is, so, yeah, anyway, similar to the forms of most other disappointing announcements, most notably, for example, in Metroid Prime Federation Force back in E3 2015, and also same applies to the actual game trailer for Paper Mario Color Splash. They seem to get quite a good amount of likes, but the majority are dislikes, which I'm not exactly sure why that gives us the forms of the majority of dislikes more than anything. I think it's probably because of how the fact that, well, probably because of the games library, or maybe is it probably because they seem to able to missing some of those key elements when it comes to Super Nintendo stuff, mainly with the forms of, well, the lack of, well, I don't know if they got Donkey Kong Country games just yet, probably because those 3 games have been made by Rare, so either way. But then again, that's just a little bit of a theory far between and stuff like that, so, but I digress. So either way, again, not much else I can really talk about this, although, apart from the fact that there's actually a good thing that we like to discuss, now is the fact that when it comes to PAX East in 2020, about the fact that aside from SpongeBob SquarePants, you know, Battle for Bikini Bottom Hydrated, you know, particular remake that's going to be playable in the forms of PAX East 2020. Also, the Wonderful 101 Remastered is also going to get its playable debut in PAX East 2020. So most of you fans will expect to able to finally get a chance to try out the wonderful 101 remastered for the Nintendo Switch. Then you'll be pretty pleased about that, because even then, despite with the actual Wii U selling points, didn't go exactly all that great. So, oh yeah, speaking of which, actually, is the fact that when it comes to the forms of... I don't know if I actually mentioned about this, or I might as well able to say it again, that Nintendo Switch has been doing so well when it comes to selling points and stuff like that. So even then, and also during that time, about the forms of the selling points career, oh wow, that was a really redundant thing to able to pop the bomb, or the bomb rather, out of the box, but I digress. So, yeah, talking of which, actually, is the fact that the actual selling points for the Nintendo Switch has now surpassed, not only the Super Nintendo, but also the Xbox One. Probably because of how the fact that I would classify, I'm guessing correctly, that the Xbox One didn't do that well in Japan. Well, according to the forms of some of those releases, mainly with the forms of Super Monkey Ball, Banana Blitz HD, that it does manage to get its release in Japan only on the PS4 and the Nintendo Switch, but not so much on the Xbox One. So either way, I'm not exactly sure they actually completely ignored that particular release in Japan, so, well, in that particular version anyway, so, but you know, you most likely get the idea. So anyways, let's go ahead and grab the red coin, because I can predict that the red coin is just right where that fly guy is. So yeah, that's how I can usually just try to guess about that. So yeah, in this particular level, as you can see, is the fact that we're going to be exploring around in a cave and stuff like that. And also, you know, with the forms of those folding waterfall kind of like platforms that you need to go through, you can thankfully able to actually just jump through it and just hop on into it, because that way you can able to actually make platforming segments a little bit safer. So, oh yeah, I should probably talk about this actually, with the forms of, if you ever play this game either in classic mode, like I'm playing right now, compared to the forms of mellow modes, the only differences between these two modes in particular is that, well, much like the forms of how it does it on Yoshi's Woolly World, / Poochie and Yoshi's Woolly World on the 3DS, if you ever play this game on mellow mode, basically this allows you to able to have Yoshi's wings at all times, and I believe also the Poochie Pops may able to help you out, kind of like how it did on the 3DS version of Yoshi's Woolly World, but then again, it has been quite a few days since I actually did manage to play through Yoshi's Woolly World from time to time, both on the Wii U and the 3DS version. So, most notably because of how the fact that I'm too busy just trying to able to play some other things and stuff. So, yeah, let's talk about the forms of the reason why that I do apologize with the actual the editing delays and stuff like that. Well, one moment in during the forms of because recently, until when it gets to the point until on I believe on this Sunday, on the 16th of February, if I can recall, we were able to actually celebrate the 9-year anniversary of the Maxi Toys YouTube channel. So even then, we're about to be prepared for that particular point, but I'm not going to tell you what the actual thing itself is going to be all about, because you have to wait and see until on that specific day, on the 16th of February, and as a result, we just keep on having some technical difficulties due to the forms of our laptop is being lagging and all the other jazz. So yeah, we're gonna have to work on that specific stuff before we're able to start on our big events. So, and around that time, until when it gets to 2021, it will be the 10-year anniversary of that specific YouTube channel itself. So, as far as I'm aware, compared to the forms of Maxi 10, that we actually did this so well. So even then, kudos to us. So yay! Probably because of how the fact that we did manage to have ourselves, you know, much more better quality than ever, because, well, capture card is always a good thing, because you can able to see what is going on the actual footage, and also same applies to the forms of, well, no need to have ourselves background noises, unless if you have access to microphone and stuff like that, then, well, you're just gonna have to able to cope with that, so. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention about the bombs, as you can see right there. You know, with the forms of those little tons of newspapers and stuff like that, in order to actually destroy those newspapers' rocks, you have to be sure you need to able to let the bomb just able to explode it on it. So then if you manage to able to try to toss the bomb onto that specific piles of newspapers and all that stuff on the rocks or etc. That way you can able to continue your progression on that particular level. So and there's the end of a level just nearby. We just need to shove this mine cart and have a nice little thrill fun ride. And so whenever we get towards the end, well, this is the moment that we need to jump. So that way you don't need to able to fall off, because if you do fall off, then you have to restart where the checkpoint is. So, you know, it's kind of like the same thing for how it does it in Yoshi's Woolly World when it comes to the checkpoint system, because otherwise, yeah, and also same applies to the other Yoshi games here and there as well. So, yeah, we're pretty much done with, you know, Minecart Cave. I do apologize for that belching right there, which I found was a little bit disgusting, so, but then again, folks, I do apologize for that, so. Anyway, so now we've got 11 of those smiley flowers, so hopefully things can get a little bit more intriguing for the most part though, especially that to make things a huge plus on my book, that I don't have to able to jump cut for that point anytime soon until, let's just do the last level on this particular world, or in this case, for the sake of this video, which is Whistle Stop Rails, which, if you remember from that particular train thing by the end of, you know, Sunshine Station and stuff like that, basically we need to get onto the whole kinds of trains in this particular stage, because, well, we see one right away, and then basically we need to have a nice little thrill fun ride with that particular train in order to actually just to progress. So, and among the way there's going to be some all kinds of items along the way, such as, of course, coins, red coins, and especially noticeable with, of course, some smiley flowers every once in a while. But I don't know if we're able to come across into some of them of those train segments, unlike the first level in the game, but anyway though, another thing I want to point out is that, unfortunately, still no sign of the forms of Cap King 74 just yet though, probably because of how the fact that, well, I don't know if I'm also able to be corrected on this, but either way, oh, looks like we're going back onto lesser amounts of those smiley flowers compared to the forms of how it does it on the previous stage we've already been to, so. And yeah, in this part we need to not only just try to able to find some hidden goodies and stuff like that, but I'm guessing that whenever we come towards to that checkpoint right there, and then we do realize that the actual signal has been turned red, because the bridge itself is actually broke apart. So naturally speaking, that much like the forms of how it does it on the first stage of this in this entire game, basically once again we need to find the 3 missing pieces of the actual crafted parts. So naturally speaking, in this level's case, we need to find 3 rail parts, because otherwise the train will not move at all if you don't do this correctly. So let's just go ahead and get this next rail part right there, and hopefully we would able to grind for some more of those Yoshi eggs and just do this challenge, and basically pay attention to the forms of those smiley flowers, because if you spot the real one, that's the entire collectible, because if you somehow accidentally just manage to obtain the angrier or greedy flowers, then it will not count. So, or maybe I don't know if you might as well able to get kicked out if you get it wrong, even though I haven't really tested this out for myself, but then again, we'll probably discover that at some point by the end of the game, but it's already depending, honestly, because this game is going to be much longer than the forms of how it does it on Yoshi's Woolly World, and especially noticeable with the forms of Yoshi's story as well, if you want to count that. So, but then again, we might try to able to do a Let's Play of Yoshi's story eventually, but not now though, because we still got current Let's Plays that we need to finish on first, like, you know, this game, as well as, you know, Super Monkey Ball Step and Roll, which I think, fundamentally though, definitely is almost going to be finished up for that particular Let's Play kind of thing about it, because I'm presuming next Monday he would able to actually finish up with that particular Let's Play in theory. In fact, no matter what though, I've decided able to realize that after when Defi has managed to finish up with the forms of Super Monkey Ball Step and Roll, although, kind of think about it though, originally we were supposed to be able to go through the forms of Sonic's playthrough of Super Monkey Ball Banana Blitz HD, but we've decided that, nah, we're not ready for that yet, so we'll have to wait and see what happens until when the actual date is about to come. And also, because of how the fact that this game is going to be much longer, or actually, no wait, nah, I pretty much lied to you guys, because I feel like that maybe we should probably let, I rather, should able to go back onto Banana Blitz eventually, but this time on the HD version. Sorry for the little bit of a commentary for this point, guys, because I know that I've already discussed upon quite a number of things, but nowhere near as like too many compared to the forms of how it does it on last year, and especially noticeable in the forms of 2018, because of how the fact that we are still lacking with the forms of some of those Nintendo related announcements or anything like that. But I've already mentioned about the forms of quite a number of things, like, you know, specifically with PAX East events and stuff like that for that nature. Although there's one thing I should probably point things out right away, despite the fact that this might seems redundant to explain this, but usually recently that the E3 2020's website is pretty much going to be up. But I don't know if I can able to discuss on this right about now, but I'm pretty sure I'll let Daffy will able to mention about that on his returning back onto the forms of, well, specifically Super Monkey Ball Step and Roll and stuff like that. Because of that, though, yeah, there's not much else I can just explain about this right about now. So, unfortunately for me, though, I've seemed to missing on one of those smiley flowers, which is a little bit, silly for that regard, but at least we got ourselves all of these, 20 red coins at least. So, that's fine by me, but, then again, I'm missing one of those smiley flowers. So, now, I promise you guys until the forms of next week or so, I should able to actually switch over to a different colored Yoshi. So, oh yeah, I should probably explain about this also, or actually I'll let Daffy will explain more about it until, specifically when he gets back onto, you know, Super Monkey Ball Step and Roll until mainly tomorrow for the Valentine's Day and stuff like that. So, in fact, I might actually go out with Rarity, of course, for during Likes event tomorrow, the gorgeous unicorn. So, yeah, anyways, enough about that specific jibby jabber. Let's go ahead and, oh, we can able to actually try one for free. Oh yeah, so it's kind of like the same thing for how it does it when you're trying to use the power badges for free in Yoshi's Woolly World, except, well, this game doesn't have, power badges this time around. Instead, you only get yourselves you know, just any kind of, like, costumes on those particular capsule machines. So, for instance, we got ourselves a crafty cat. So, that's cool, though. And also, we can now able to actually spend on, 900 coins. So, hopefully we're able to get more coins later down the road, especially noticeable if we're about to start hunting for those Pudgy Pups, and especially noticeable with these, souvenir hunts and stuff like that. So, seriously, it's gonna be a lot of busy work. So we got a purple train car and a buffalo. And also we've got a pink train car and a pawn bomb box. I do apologize for that pronunciation, by the way. Little Mouser. And also we've got silver push cart. And also we've got mine cart. And the condor box. And finally, the Tin Can Condor, which either way, we probably not gonna talk about what's gonna come up next until likely next few uploads later, but I digress. So we did manage to at least complete that. I don't know if they actually contains like, some random capsules or anything like that, so you can at least able to actually purchase the amount of them. So anyways, I'll meet you guys back onto that, the missing sunflower or the smiley flower I missed. Okay, so turns out I actually ignored that part where basically if you go onto this roof, then hit onto that specific part, and there you go. So that's how I managed to accidentally ignore that part. Alright, back onto the forms of the world map we go. And, yeah, everything else might be considered this to be quite good all in all. So either way, we can either just manage to, actually, we've only got one more level left, kind of thing about it, before we're able to continue things on. So either way, yeah, looks like, yeah, he doesn't give us any souvenir hunts anytime soon, but, I digress. So I think we should probably say this for now. I think we should probably end things up here. So join me next time on Let's Play Yoshi's Crafted World for the Nintendo Switch. Is the fact that we are still able to continue things on Big Paper Peak, and eventually we might be able to get ourselves the first Sun Dreamstone, or the Sun, what? I can't really pronounce that item for this point, guys. I do apologize for that. So yeah, hopefully we should be able to get a lot of things done considering. So yeah, see you guys on next Tuesday. So see you then. Later, fellas.